Hello, I'm Guy Hutchinson. I am an author, I am a podcaster, I am the host of Drunk on Disney. I wrote this book that at least one person purchased, which is a very thin book, but I've written other books. I've written the official book on Sesame Place. I've written cocktail guides about Disney World and lots of other stuff. And I love talking about myself. So this sounds like this is going to be a lot of fun.
Okay, so we were talking about earlier, like, you do Drunk on Disney with Dana Snyder, and I was wondering, how did you guys meet?
So Dana Snyder is the voice of Master Shake on Aqua Teen Hunger Force. He also voices the Penguin in one of the Justice League series. He's currently doing the voice of SpongeBob, actually Patrick from SpongeBob's grandfather. He does lots of character voices. And years ago, I interviewed him. I reached out to him. I said, hey, I'd like to interview you for a show I do. And we started talking. And I had sort of known him before that, just for a very strange reason, is that he had a blog that he needed someone to post to. And so I reached out to him. I was like, well, I've done other blogs. I sent him an email. And he said, well, what are your blogs? And I said, well, I have a blog where I just catalog all the hats Mrs. Howell wears on Gilligan's Island. And I sent it to him, and he was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Of course, I want you to write for free, on my blog. And so I did. I wrote on his blog, and then I was doing a podcast, and I said, would you come on it? And so we started talking on this podcast, and we were scheduled to talk for 30 minutes. And 90 minutes later, I said, I got to go. I have something else to do. And he said, well, we need to start doing a podcast every week, you and I. So the two of us clicked so well on so many things, but very particularly, we both really like Disney. And so we wanted to do a show on Disney. And the Drunk on Disney idea was we both like cocktails, but the idea was that says to you in an instant that this is not your average Disney podcast. We're talking something more unique. It's a little more adult. It's a lot more fun. So that's where it came about. And so since then, we've been really, really close friends, and, we get to travel around and do shows around the country.
Also, I was going to say earlier, too, like, I don't know, I like both of you guys because I've seen all your, your things with your panels and whatever, but, I don't really drink that much, and my parents never took me to Disney, but I still find it very exciting, so I think that's cool.
Here's the thing, though. So I always tell people we were drunk on Disney before we were ever drunk on alcohol. Like the concept of being drunk on something doesn't just refer to being, full of alcoholic beverages. It can. But we both loved Disney since we were really little. He grew up originally in Las Vegas, but then he moved out to the East Coast and then eventually settled in Los Angeles. But he grew up like I did on the East Coast for a lot of his childhood and formative years. And, Disney World was good plane ride away, and so it was like a place you'd go to once a year. And back then, before you had the internet and everything else, one of the things that we both talked about is we would take the park maps. We would take them home, like when we'd go to the park, and then we'd sit there and look at them and reread them and just try to remember, like I'd sit there and say, well, if I was there today, I'd go from here to here to here. And so one of the things that we both bonded about years later is we both collect park maps. And so anytime either of us goes to a park, we get maps for the other one. People bring them to shows like this and give them to us, which is pretty awesome. And, Disney's great. Disney, it's a lot of fun. It's something for everyone. The cocktail thing that's really neat is Disney makes their own cocktails. And so for a lot of people, because your vacations are so important, they're these recreation moments of your life. Let's say you go over to Epcot, and you go over to Morocco, and you have a Morocco-rita at the Moroccan restaurant, and you're sitting there, you're drinking that cocktail, and you're looking out at everything, and maybe if you have a wife and kids or husband and kids, you're sitting there and playing with them, or you're talking to grandma, whatever it is, and you have that drink, and you're enjoying the ambiance, and then later when you come back home to be able to make that weird Disney cocktail, which, granted, their cocktails aren't necessarily great cocktails, but it brings you back to that moment. It's something that's very, it appeals to the sense of taste. And so that's why we kind of felt the cocktails were really good like a specific thing people could remember from their adventures. And so Disney's cocktails are all super sweet. They're not the best, but they're good. they're a lot of fun, and they're definitely memorable because Disney gives them all ridiculous names.
Yeah, and I like too that you have like a bunch of different, like both of you two have like kind of like different like panels and stuff. Like you have the
Yeah.
chickens and pop culture,
Yep.
and the was it the VHS?
VHS Va Va Boom. I'll be doing that tomorrow. Yeah. The VHS one. So the chickens one, somebody mentioned it to me as an idea, and I thought it was a great idea. And I started looking at different chickens that appeared in movies and television shows. The VHS one, though, was really special to me because years ago, before, and you're probably too young to remember this time period, but the time period when you had VHS, before you had DVD, before you had the internet, things were different. One of the things I know about today is whenever there's a really cool video and I really like it, I find it on YouTube or on Facebook or Twitter or something, and I share it with other people, and they see it, it goes viral, or whatever, and everybody enjoys it. But in the old days, you would find a really cool video, and you'd have it in your house. And so when friends came over, you'd be like, guys, I got to show you this. If you ever noticed, whatever it is, Jessica Rabbit, when she flips around in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and they animated her, they didn't animate her underwear or whatever the thing was. And you'd be like, guys, you got to see this. This is crazy. Or here, I've got the Star Wars holiday special. And so you'd gather with people and see them. And today, we don't do that. We post them online and people click like. And to me, it's not the same thing, man. There was something about having your friends over or being at a party and popping in a tape for them. So I did a panel where I tried to find as many of those things that aren't online so I could share them with people in a room, saying, hey, we're going to watch this stuff together. Everybody else can't, necessarily find this on YouTube. I mean, more and more stuff is going up, so it's a little harder to have exclusive old weird material. But there's something about watching it with a room full of people and laughing at it.
Yeah. That's like too YouTube, like sometimes people upload stuff, but then it's not like the original or it's missing pieces.
Yeah.
And it just bothers me.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of the worst thing there. I can't remember what special it was, but there was a special, an old one that I watched on YouTube, and it's exactly what you're talking about, where like the last 12 minutes of it or whatever were missing, and I was just, I know what it was actually. It was a great special. Who was the old-time entertainer? He was a guy. He had a famous daughter. He had a whole famous family. What was his name? Man, it'll come to me, but he was a Pat Boone. It was Pat Boone. It was a Pat Boone Christmas special, and somebody had just uploaded like 3 weird segments, and I was like, where's the end of this? Where's the rest of this stuff? There was in this Christmas special, the Ropers from Three's Company show up as the Ropers, so it's like the actors show up, but they're pretending to be. They're going by their real names, but they're pretending to be married. So it was like Audrey Lindley and Norman Fell. And then the Hanna-Barbera characters, costumed characters, did like a dance number with Pat Boone. And finally, the thing showed up, I think, for sale on YouTube. I think I had to pay like $3.99 or whatever. But I was overjoyed to pay for it. I'm sure somebody's now uploaded it for free.
That's funny. That's like if you watch some of the music videos, like ones on YouTube, they changed them. Because, we've watched them, and I'm like, this looks kind of off. And so I pulled up, I found them on VHS, and then I watched them, and I was like, this is not the right thing.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about YouTube, it's just like user uploaded, and so, yeah.
Let's see what else. The chickens, us too. Like, what is the San Diego chicken? Because I thought it was like the actual Padres mascot.
No. So the reason he's called the San Diego chicken, he started out as the KGB chicken, which was a radio station out in California. And so the radio station started this chicken, totally unrelated to the ball team. But he then did events at the ball team. And so he became very closely associated with them. But he also did stuff for other teams. He would travel around the country. There's actually a really funny story that because the radio station was, I don't know whether, I think it was WKGB but their call letters were KGB. And so apparently I think it was, I want to say it was Gerald Ford that saw the KGB chicken at a like live event in San Diego, and he called him over. He was like, "Tell somebody to get that chicken over here. I want to get a picture with him." And so they brought him over, and immediately, the Kremlin exploded with anger over in Russia, saying, "Why is he with a chicken with the letters KGB on it? What is this supposed to be, some kind of international insult?" So the San Diego chicken almost caused an international war.
Talking about radio too. You worked in radio?
I did, yeah. I
What'd you
worked in radio for years. I was a radio DJ for a while. I was a talk show host. Anything I could do on the radio for years and years. I did a home shopping club kind of show for a while on the radio, where I'd get different products, and I'd sit there and talk about them and try to describe them for people. I love doing radio. It's not the same as it used to be. I was a guest on a radio show a couple of years ago, and I went into the studio, and she was live on the air, yet she was recording an interview with me, and I said, "How does that work?" And she's like, "Oh, we pre-record everything now. It kind of is too automated. It's not as, I like, real live stuff and real interactions. Everything, nowadays a little bit in the radio business is a little bit more pre-recorded. Also, you can be here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and you could be hosting 5 shows across the country. They can beam you out to every different area. They can, have it so that it splices in you saying a different city. So kind of changed over the years. But yeah, I used to be on the radio. I loved it. I started when I was too young to drink, I remember, because they had the office Christmas party and I wasn't able to go to it. So I was probably like 18 or 19 years old when I started. Yeah, it was a fun job. I mean, it was a very cutthroat business. That's the one thing I do remember, because I was very young and very stupid, and you did find that there was a lot of backstabbing. But yeah.
I went to college to do radio, and my teacher the whole time was like, "By the time you graduate, satellite radio is going to take everything over."
Yeah.
And basically, it was like, y'all need to quit. So they had it broken up, so we had to do radio and TV.
Yeah.
So it was kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, it really did. The satellite thing, I remember when they got the satellite, and our satellite did overnights, and they would send over these files on a really old computer, and we would, put them in a row. I'd be like, all right, it's going to say this, and then it'll say 1350 WH, which is our call letter, and it would be almost seamless, where you'd think, that guy really was there and he really was talking about that stuff. And the really interesting thing about the radio station I worked for, one of them, was 1350 WH. I was fired from there. They almost fired me one other time when I asked for a raise. They were really not the best place to work for. But what I love about it is I was fired from there, and I appear now on their Wikipedia page as notable former DJs or whatever. But the station now is not an English language station. So they broadcast in another language, and somebody told me, and I went on their website, and I'm not sure if it's still there, but they had a page about the history of their station, and everything is in, I don't know what it is, Japanese or some language, Mandarin, and then it just says Guy Hutchinson in English. And I just was like, this is the greatest thing that somehow, I've made it into the lore of this foreign language station.
Which one was that?
It was WHWH was the name of the station. I worked for a few other ones, but that was one I worked at for a while. That was my first.
So you did
job.
You said you did music and you did talk radio?
Yeah, I did music. I worked for Magic 98.3 FM for a while. I worked. I did talk shows, and it was a fun job.
Cool.
I mean,
so what's your favorite one?
Favorite?
What kind of, do you like talking?
I love talking. No, I love talking. I mean, in music, I was not the best person to be in charge of music, because it's not that I don't like music. I love music. I just don't know anything about music. I don't know what good music is from bad music. I just, but yeah, I actually was the music director for that stage. Cool. And so I would line up, what songs to play, and I mean, I really didn't know. I just look at the charts and say, well, these ones seem popular.
So was it like a top one?
Yeah, there was WPST, which is still around, which then was 97.5. Today they're 94 or 5, they moved on the dial, but they're out in Philadelphia.
Cool.
And they're located, I think their transmitter's in Trenton, but they are able to say Philadelphia for some reason. But I did their music for a while. They were, popular top 40 station. They were a lot of fun. The cool thing about the top 40 station was you would get concert tickets all the time for really good shows, When you did the oldies station, you'd get some, but a lot of the artists were dead, so it was like Elvis is not inviting you to do, to see his show. But I did get to do some crazy stuff. Like I got to introduce the opening act. I didn't get to introduce him, but I got to introduce his opening act for an Elton John show. So that was pretty great. So I got to go on and do that, which was really cool. And then Elton John came out and he said the wrong city. I don't remember where exactly we were, but I remember it was like a controversy because he said, hello, Newark, and we were in Camden or something like that. And people were like, what? How dare you, Elton John? But I did see Elton John backstage. I didn't meet him, but I did see him, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Did you interview Andy Richter?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. I not only did I interview Andy Richter, I was good. I was good friends with Andy Richter. I'm sure Andy doesn't remember me. I guess he could be prompted to remember me. But there was a time period during the first Conan show where I interviewed Andy. I reached out and interviewed him, and then I would have Andy back on a lot.
Wow.
So and I have 1 or 2 of the interviews we did, but like we would do stuff like Andy would call up because Andy at that time, and I don't know if this is a public thing or not, but I'm sure he doesn't care at this point. He was not allowed in the writers' room. He didn't get along with some people that were on the creative staff of that show, I guess. And so he would have all day where he didn't have anything to do. And so if there were radio interviews or anything, he was always happy to do them. So I reached out to the person in charge there and said, hey, I want to see if I can get Andy on the air on, Wednesday or whatever. They'd be like, okay, and Andy was always happy to do it. And so I would chat with Andy and we would do stuff like I'd say, we'd record stuff, which I'd play later in the week, like he'd do like comedy bits with me and stuff. And then I even got to go, I met him and I met Conan very briefly. Conan was in a rush, but I met Conan. I sat in Conan's chair. I wish it was a later time when everybody had cameras, phones, and everything, because I didn't even have a camera with me. So I got to go up on the stage. I got to sit in Conan's chair. It was pretty neat. It was. I remember 2 things. One was the Conan's desk was much smaller than it looked on television, which you always hear. But the other thing I remember was there were all these chips on it, which just I noticed where it was like the chair had kept bumping into it or whatever, but it was like so beat up and I couldn't, like I zoomed in on that, like I remember that, and when I'd watch it on TV, I'd be like, I've been on the other side of that desk. It's a piece of crap, it's all beat up.
That's cool. So you got to interview like Andy in person?
Yeah, no, I interviewed him on the radio, but I talked to him in person. I got to meet him. But yeah, I interviewed him on the radio a number of times. Yeah, he was, and then he became a big star. He had all those, had a couple TV series on his own before they came back and did Conan on TBS.
And then they left again.
Yeah, they just left again. Yeah, but yeah, he had. What was that? Andy Richter Controls the Universe or something. He had a TV show, and then he had another one where he was a private investigator. It was very funny. I mean, he's a very funny guy.
That's cool. You should upload your interview.
I think it might be
really?
online.
I'll have to look for it.
I think you should look. I think it might be online. I'm not
Okay,
positive.
I'll check. I didn't see it. I'll look again. What's something people would be surprised to know about you?
Ooh, I don't like ice cream at all. I don't. So people that know me know this, and they all think I'm super weird. And I agree, it is super weird. But like, I don't like ice cream. When we go out to a restaurant, a lot of times they'll be like, "Oh, we're having dessert. Do you want any?" I'll be like, "Oh, no, thank you." And there's always the, "Oh, come on, just have a little bit," because they assume if you say you don't want to have ice cream, it's because you're maybe watching your figure, or you don't want to take ice cream from the person that's offering it to you. But I literally don't like ice cream, so that is surprising. It's weird. I get that I'm in the minority. I tell people all the time, and they're like, "How is that possible? What is wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I get it. I totally understand. I just don't like it."
So why don't you? Is there a reason?
I just don't like it. Like it's unenjoyable to me. It's not like like eating ice cream. I'd be like, oh, this is so gross. But I just don't like it at all. It's sticky. It's cold. Like everything about it to me is. I'm like, this is no good. Why would somebody like this? So I don't know why. I don't know if it's the texture, the temperature, the flavor. It's something. I'm not a big fan of desserts in general, but ice cream just really I don't like. I have, and I know everybody loves it, but I don't know that I've had ice cream in a decade, and I don't know that I'll ever have ice cream again. And there's been, and I tell this to people, and I've had friends that are like, I got to tell you, I know people that are terribly lactose intolerant that will eat ice cream because they like it so much, and violently torture themselves later in the bathroom. And here you are, capable of eating all the ice cream you want, and you don't have it. But I don't like ice cream. I could absolutely be. I could be if they had an ice cream shop and they were like, we need a guy to work here that will never eat our ice cream, that will never eat our profits. I'd be like, I'm your man. I shall stand here at your ice cream shop.
So you ate it like as a child?
Yeah, but I mean, at some point, like, there wasn't like a day where I said, I no longer like ice cream. I just noticed over the course of my life that it became something more and more, especially as I got older, that I was like, yeah, it's all right. And then one day I was like, you know what? I don't even like it. I don't even like ice cream. I don't want anything to do with ice cream. So I don't like ice cream. If I'm someplace and they have some special ice cream, I guess I'd try it. Like I mean, I've tried like the Dole Whip and all that stuff. And it's fine. It's just not for me. But that's something unusual. That's weird, right?
I like that, but it sounds like you've been traumatized by it.
I wasn't though. I don't. Maybe the ice cream man, beat me up when I was a kid. I don't remember it though.
That's like, I used to teach preschool, and this one kid was scared of the person that cut the grass.
Okay.
And because I almost kept asking her why, and she's like, because apparently that was like her parents' thing is don't talk to strangers.
Okay.
The example was the guy cutting the grass.
Yeah.
And I was, anyway.
Well, I mean that happens, and kids have quite an imagination. So I remember like when I was a kid, I saw a man in a suit. We had this weird thing where I grew up where there was a tunnel that was just like one of those big concrete, things that went under the highway, right? So it was like there was like a highway, and you could walk to the other side, and we'd go to like the deli or whatever, and we'd walk through this. And I remember one day there was a man in a suit coming through there, like a well-dressed guy, and he had an umbrella with him, and I pictured, because I had seen it on Batman, I pictured him pulling out a sword from the umbrella, and I was scared to death. I remember like being so scared walking past him. I was with like my older brother. I'm sure there were probably somebody else with us. We were probably very safe, but I remember thinking that. And then I clearly remember anytime I saw a very well-dressed man with an umbrella, I was like, oh God, there was a long time where that traumatized me. Yeah, kids are,
That's funny. So what do you do? Do you think, what do you do now? Do you do anything else other that we don't know about?
I write books. I do some work with audio and video and technology and recording for different companies and stuff. But I mean, and I try to keep people entertained at shows like this.
Yeah. Cool. I was watching your. You're in one of the Haunted Jungle Cruise.
Oh yeah.
And I like how you're like, was it Bambi's spooky brother Bamboo?
Bamboo,
I was like,
yeah.
That's funny.
The Jungle Cruise is fantastic, and the movie they now got the Jungle Cruise movie, which I have not seen yet, but it's coming out, and they said it's like 2 hours and 45 minutes, which I'm like, that's like, because the Jungle Cruise ride is like, I don't know, 7 minutes maybe, 10 minutes tops. I just can't imagine that even with The Rock, even with all his charisma, that it can stretch to that. But yeah, I did a Haunted Jungle Cruise I really did that live for a Halloween show we did at a convention years ago, and then I had it sitting around. I think it was during quarantine. I was like, why don't I record that and put that online? I'm glad you liked it. It's the same kind of corny jokes that you get on the real Jungle Cruise.
That was my favorite one.
Yeah, that's my YouTube channel. It is my YouTube channel. I just don't do enough with it. it doesn't have a huge amount of subscribers. It's not, but it's out there. And if people look it up, if I see interesting things, I try to record them and put them on there. And there are some things on there that I think are pretty good. But it's kind of unlike yours, mine is kind of shatter shock or whatever, where it's all. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's all over the place. There's this, there's that, there's, and so it doesn't, I don't think it fits into, it's everything I want to put on there, which is probably not what it should be. It should be, geared towards a specific thing, but maybe one day. Okay. I love YouTube though. I'm such a big fan of it. I really wish I had started on YouTube years ago, because I wanted to do YouTube, and I think I got in way too late. I think, if I had started, but I used to watch like Adam the Woo, who still does videos, who I think is just amazing. And like, I remember being like, I should do this too. And then I was like, well, he's already doing it. Now everybody does it. So.
You were talking about that earlier too, like at your thing, about your stuff on YouTube. So what's your what would you recommend, like your favorite thing to watch on YouTube?
Man, no, my favorite thing, like I just love, there's so much. It depends on what you're interested in, but I love to just dig around and find like old weird things. I love so many people upload their home movies on there, and so I will watch people's home vacations, their old, like their family at Walt Disney World. I love that stuff. I watch a ton of that. We were actually, me and Dana Snyder were sitting in a hotel room this morning with like 3 other friends, and we were watching a 1994 video in Walt Disney World. And, you saw like this family have dinner, at one point at they were in, where were they in? They were at the Liberty Tree Tavern in Walt Disney World, and we were like, this is great. Like, it's like you see what when you watch that stuff, it's like, you're like, that's what the glasses looked like in 1994. So. Yeah, no, I would say the other thing I love about YouTube is I'm a big horse racing fan, and I've found over the past few years, because everything's on YouTube, I can actually I could sit there and watch all of the races before the Kentucky Derby, like all of them, and handicap the race, and then still lose money on it. So I love that. I love that I can have all the information in the known world. But YouTube is great. Like, I'll sit there one day and be like, I wonder how they made Mount Rushmore, and it's fascinating how they made it. They made this model, and then they had these guys on ropes with sledgehammers, and they approximated on the model how far they'd have to go down on the real mountain. But it was like, I wanted to know about it, and then a couple hours later, I knew more about Mount Rushmore than anybody in history up until YouTube started, because I was able to watch every documentary. I was able to watch footage of people driving up to it, a trail guided tour that somebody went on and recorded. You can see everything on there. It's great.
Cool. Do you have any convention stories, like best, worst, or something crazy that happened?
I think worst that we'll leave off, because worst, I'm sure, first of all, I can't think of, whoever I would mention is either watching this or, may hire me again. I mean, there's a lot of, but I've had very few bad experiences. I've had no terrible experiences. Best experience. I mean, there's been some really sweet stories I could tell you about. Sometimes you meet a lot of children, especially because I write some books for kids, and I do the Sesame Street panels and stuff. So a lot of times I get to talk to some little kids who sometimes they have social issues. Some of the kids that I've met where they don't interact well with people, and I get to talk to them and whatever. And I mean, it's really sweet a lot of times, especially when you see kids that are excited to see you, or excited to, like I'll sign books for kids, and they get really excited about that. And I remember being that age, and I still remember when I was a kid, there was an author named Elizabeth Levy, and she wrote a book called Something Queer is Going On, and then they did Something Queer at the Library, and the whole series, the queer in the title was not the way we use it today. It was just meant something odd has happened, and it would be about a mystery. And I loved these books, and she came to my school when I was a kid, and she signed my book, and I said to her, I want to be a writer when I grow up, but I don't know that I know how to do it. What do I have to do? And I remember she looked at me and she said, well, you can do it. She said, you just have to work at it and you can definitely do it. And I remember like in my mind thinking, well, I have permission from her to write. And I've since talked to her and I sent her some books and she was super sweet about it. I think we're running low on time, but do you have any more? Do you have a last question to go out on?
Okay, I guess then the last. Do you have any advice or anything you want to promote or?
Well, look, if people want to, they can get my stuff. I'd love you to buy my stuff. Go on Amazon, look up my books, and if you like any of them, purchase them. If not, a lot of them are in public libraries, so go support your public library. You can check out one of my books. Hope that it doesn't have boogers stuck in the pages, which I've heard is true about a couple of them, because that happens. That's the only downfall about the library. One time I checked out a children's book, and somebody had put X's on the eyes of all of the girls in the book, and that in handwriting that was clearly a small child, it said, "Girls die" at the end. And I was like, okay, I took it to the library. I was like, you guys may want to take this off the shelf. But I'll tell you this quick bit of advice. Years ago, I looked online and there was no website about Sesame Place other than the official website, which had nothing on history about the park. And I created a blog, which then led to them reaching out to me to write their book. And my friend Tim Liebarger once created and still runs the Mr. Rogers fan website, Mr. Rogers Neighborhood Archive. And Tim once said something that I thought was so profound and led to me doing that blog, which was, he said, if you're on the internet or anywhere and you're looking for something and it's not there, you can be the one to create it. And that's what happened with me. And so if you're out there and you're like, hey, I'm a big fan of this series and there's not a good website about it, or there's not a good this or that, be the one to create that. Be the one to put it out there, because there's a lot of room today. Of all the times in history, this is the time to create things. It is a better time than ever.